This is a mountain king snake. Totally harmless little snake. Mountain kings are red, white, and black, or red, yellow, and black. And you can find them in the hills right around us. Usually to find a mountain king snake, you've got to go high enough in the mountains that you get snow in the wintertime. But here in California, we're lucky. They come all the way down to the coast. Mountain kings are kind of cool. These snakes are pretty quick. They don't get very big, and they are mimicking something that is really neat. Does anybody know what kind of snake this snake is trying to be? Wants you to think she is? That's right, a coral snake. Coral snakes are one of the most venomous snakes we have in North America. Coral snakes are also red, white, and black, or red, yellow, and black. Same colors as her. If she was a coral snake, as tiny as she is, if she was to bite someone as big as I am, for sure I'd spend a couple days in the hospital and might even kill me. Coral snakes and mountain kings have the same colors. She wants you to think she's a coral snake. So if you're some hungry creature or some curious kid and you see her, you're going to think to yourself, nope, not going to touch that one. If it bites me, I'll be in trouble. I'm going to leave it alone. That's what she wants you to do. We can tell she's not a coral snake, though, by the pattern her colors are arranged in. You can tell what a snake is and where it's from by the colors it has and the pattern those colors come in. If you look at her carefully, you'll see everywhere there's red, there's black on each side. All the way down her little body, she's got red touching black. If she was a coral snake, and we were in North America, there would be red touching white or red touching yellow. So we know because she's got the red touching black, nothing we need to worry about. She's very smooth and very shiny, too. So smooth and so shiny that she looks like she's wet and slimy. She looks like you would touch her and get something gross and icky all over your fingers. But if you did touch her, she'd be smooth and shiny. Snakes are never wet, never slimy. They're always dry. Sometimes they're smooth and dry, sometimes they're rough and dry, but they're always dry. If you do touch one of mine and it's wet or slimy or sticky, it's because somewhere down the road before you, some kid with a wet, slimy, or sticky finger wiped it off onto my snakes. These guys are cleaner than you guys are. This is a gopher snake. Gopher snakes are all over California. They're not only the most common snake we have in California, they can be the biggest snake we have in California. A big gopher snake could be 8 feet long. She's a little over 4 feet right now. If she was 8 feet long, if I can get her to unwrap here, I could take that pointy little tail and put it on the ground here where my shoe is, and her nose would reach my hand all the way up here. That's 8 feet, from here all the way down. So she's got some serious growing still to do. They get to be a very big snake. Gopher snakes, they have a pretty interesting name, don't they? Anybody know why they're called gopher snakes? They live down in the actual gopher holes, and they do eat the gophers. Those are the two reasons they're called gopher snakes. They think gophers are a tasty treat. Now, a lot of people think that the hotter it is for a snake, the better it is for a snake, and that's not true. When these guys get too hot, they'll overheat and die, same as you guys. 110 degrees outside, 20 minutes in the sunshine, dead snake. Can't tolerate the heat. They have no way to cool themselves off. But these snakes are pretty clever. Actually, a lot of snakes are, but these guys are known for it. A couple of feet underground, where the gopher has his living room, it'll be 80, 85 degrees. Even if it's 110 degrees out here, you go 2 feet underground, it's 20, 25 degrees cooler. 80, 85 degrees is the perfect temperature for a gopher snake to be at. They like that. When it gets hot, they look for those gopher holes. They go down in them not only to find a nice tasty meal, but to get away from the sun, to get away from predators, to have a nice place to sit and digest that nice tasty meal. They use those holes for quite a bit. It's pretty neat. She is about 12 years old and she's about 4 feet long. And I want you to take a good look underneath her and tell me if you see any hands or feet hanging off of that snake belly. Gotta look pretty careful though, she's pretty long. You guys see any hands or feet? One of the things that makes a snake is no hands and no feet. But even without them, these guys are really good at climbing. They can climb almost anything you can. Fences, bushes, rock piles, jungle gyms, they slither right on up. But sometimes when a snake is climbing, it'll slip and fall. And when a snake slips and falls, it can't put its hand out to grab a hold of something, can't put its foot out to stop itself, no hands and no feet. If she was to fall off of my hand right now, she would fall all the way down to the ground and whap, big old belly flop. Snakes do not like belly flops. If your belly was almost 4 feet long, you wouldn't want to be flopping on it either. So what they do to prevent those belly flops is hang on with their tails, kind of like she's doing to my fingers right here. She's not trying to squeeze me and she's not trying to hurt me, but she's holding on tight enough that if she was to slip off of this hand, she would not fall and hit the ground. And if she wanted to, she could hang like that for an hour with no problem at all. Snakes are really strong. They've got a lot of muscle. Next time you guys get the chance, go to a good tree branch or a jungle gym. Try to hang by one arm and see how long you can do it. If we were to go all the way across the country to Florida and go looking for snakes there, this is one of the ones we're most likely to find. And this one is called a corn snake. And even though it's called a corn snake, it eats no corn at all. There are no vegetarian snakes. All snakes are carnivores. They all eat some other animal for their food, including our friend here, the corn snake. Now, people used to think the corn snakes ate corn, and they thought that for pretty good reason. They used to find these big red snakes all throughout the southeastern part of the United States, wherever there was corn or grain. In the fields where it was grown, in the barns where it was stored, wherever that corn or grain was, lots of these big red snakes turned up, and people figured, hey, we keep finding them where the corn is, they must be eating the corn, we'll call them corn snakes. These guys weren't there to eat the corn, they don't care about corn at all. Corn snakes have two favorite foods. They like to eat mice and they like to eat rats. Mice and rats have two favorite foods. They like to eat corn and they like to eat grain. These guys are pretty smart. They figured out if they go where the corn and the grain is, that's where the mice and the rats are, and it's easy to find food there. If you guys were little corn snakes living in the forest in Florida, when you got hungry and went looking for food, it could take you 2 days or 3 days or 4 days to find a big fat mouse or rat to have for lunch. That's a long time. But if you were a clever little corn snake living in a barn full of corn, when you got hungry and went looking for food, it might take you 20 or 30 or 40 minutes to find a big fat mouse or rat. That's no time at all. These guys are pretty smart. They figured it out. They went where the corn and the grain was because that's where the mice and the rats are. I want you to take a good look at her colors. She's black and red and yellow and orange and white. Each one of those little red squares on her back has a skinny black line all the way around it. Like someone took a magic marker or a crayon and outlined each one of those little red squares with a thin black line. All the way down. Now, one of the coolest things about snakes is the variety they come in. This one is also a corn snake. But this one doesn't look very much like this one, does it? At least not as far as its colors go. But if we look carefully at her pattern, we'll see that they're very much alike. This one's got little red squares all down her back, too. No little black lines around them. In fact, there's no black on her back at all, but she's got the same little red squares that the first one did. This one is an albino corn snake, which means that she's got no black and red eyes, but she's the same exact kind of snake as this one. In fact, this snake and this snake are sisters. Same mom, same dad, same grandparents. Everything about them is the same except for one thing. This one, no matter where you look, you'll find black. And this one, no matter how hard you look, you'll find no black at all. When I bring them by, take a look at their eyes and their tongues. She's got dark eyes and a dark tongue. She's got red eyes and a red tongue, and they look very different. You see, they both have that little checkerboard on their belly. Same pattern, but different colors. And they both have those squares all down their back. Again, the same pattern, but different colors. And if you guys are ever thinking about a snake for a pet, corns are a good one to start off with. They don't get too big, they're friendly, and they're easy to keep. Now, some snakes, they like to lick you on your hand. That's their favorite place to lick you. And some snakes, they don't care where they lick you, they'll lick you anywhere they can. And then there's this guy. He's kind of peculiar. This one likes to lick people in the hair. Why he likes hair so much, I have no idea, but he does like hair. He's a hair-licking snake. He will almost always come right down to the top of your head and give you a little snaky lick. Sometimes he'll just lick your hair. Sometimes he'll crawl into it. Sometimes he'll come around the front and give you a little lick on the nose or the cheek or the neck just to say, hey, how are you? I have no idea why he likes hair as much as he does, but he does. And he will usually come right on down and give you a little snaky lick just like that. It kind of tickles for you, and it's kind of funny for us. And we'll get most of you, but not all of you. So if you absolutely do not want to do this, be sure you let me know before I put them on your head. The next two we're going to see are not snakes, they're lizards. Now, both of these lizards we can find in Australia. We can find them both in the same part of Australia. In fact, we can find one of these lizards sitting on top of a rock, turn that rock over and find the other one sitting underneath it, and these two lizards look nothing at all alike. It's amazing how different they are. Bearded dragons have spikes and spines and sharp pointy parts all over their body. Everywhere you look on this guy, there's something sharp and pointy looking back at you. He wants you to think that he is no fun at all to chew on. And he's actually a very tasty lizard, but with all those spikes and spines and sharp pointy parts, kind of hard to get to the tasting part. At least that's what he wants you to think. And he looks pretty sharp, doesn't he? Those spines on his side, looks like you touch one of those, make a little blood donation, doesn't it? And these spikes on his neck, they look really sharp too, don't they? They all fold right over. There's nothing to them. Everything on him that looks sharp and pointy is not really sharp and pointy at all. So if you did want to make a meal out of him, it would be pretty easy. He doesn't want you to, and he looks like he's not at all, but he's actually pretty easy to eat. Now these guys, I want you to look at the shape of his body and his legs and his tail. He's designed for running fast and climbing quickly. He's kind of flat, there's not a whole lot of body to him, but he's got big, strong, muscular legs, a lot of definition on those legs. He's been at the gym for quite a while. He's got a big fat tail here up near his body and tapers really quick to a tiny little point. He likes to climb. and he's a good runner. And he likes to be out in the open. He's got these rough, scaly parts because he's out in the open where predators can see him, and he needs to be protected from those guys looking for him. This next lizard, it doesn't really look like a lizard, does it? Looks a lot more like a snake than a lizard. This lizard we could find sitting underneath the rock that we find that bearded dragon sitting on top of. This one is a skink. You guys all say skink? Skink is a weird word to say, isn't it? It kind of fits sideways in your mouth. Skinks are lizards that generally don't run very fast at all because their legs are so small. And as a rule, they don't climb that well because their legs are so small. But skinks, they tunnel and they burrow and they get down underneath things really, really well because their legs are so small. These guys are designed for being underground and underneath big things that are on top of the ground. Leaves, logs, rocks, dirt, gravel, he can push his way right through that. His favorite, though, is like the gopher snake. He likes to go into other animals' tunnels and burrows. He's specially designed to do that. His body is pretty thick. It's kind of round like a snake's, and it's much thicker than that bearded dragon we just saw. But even so, his legs are tiny. His legs are so small that his knees don't come up above his backbone. Now that's pretty important. That means that when he's down in some other animal's tunnel, he can use his legs to walk, and he can run if he needs to, too. He can go down that little tunnel. He's not slithering like a snake. He's using his feet to pull himself along, to push himself backwards. Any way he needs to go, he can do that. And he can go backwards or forwards or up or down any way he wants to because nothing on him other than his legs stick out. He's smooth like a piece of glass. That bearded dragon, everywhere you touch, something pokey sticking out. This guy, the only pokey things he's got at all are his little legs. Now he looks a lot like a snake. He's not a snake, and we can tell he's not 3 ways. The first one is pretty easy because he's got those legs. Little ones, but they're there. 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. He's also got ears. This little hole near my finger is an ear. He's got one on each side of his head, and he can hear all the same sounds you guys can. Those ears are kind of hard to see because he's got little scale coverings over them so that it keeps the dirt and the sand and the grubs out of there. Down where he's down underground, he doesn't want something crawling in his ear, so he's grown special scale covering to keep him clean. And if you watch his eyes long enough, he'll blink. He'll close them and open them just like you guys do. Snakes never have legs, and snakes never have ears, and snakes never close their eyes. Lizards usually have legs, and they usually have ears, and they usually have eyes that close. Since he's got all 3, he's a pretty good example of a lizard. He is a blue-tongued skink, and when he sticks his tongue out, if we can get him to do it, you can see that it's a bright blue color, almost like the carpet there. Some of your pants, same shade. The next one we're going to see is not a reptile at all. It's an amphibian. My guess is it's one of the biggest frogs you've ever seen. This is a double handful of frog right here. This frog is pretty big. Most people, they see a frog this size, and they think that must be a far-jumping frog. Distance must be no problem for him. Looking at this frog and thinking that, not going to win you any bets. This guy does not jump well at all. He's big, and he's fat, and he's heavy, and he's got tiny, stubby little legs. For this guy, a big jump, a big hop, 4 or 5 inches, that's as far as he can go. Not much of a jumper. His thing, what he's really good at, is eating. His mouth is huge. It's so big that when I feed him, I give him full-grown mice. Mice that are this big, not including their tails, and he eats them in 2 gulps. Glump, glump, no more mouse. His mouth is so big, it stretches from over here behind this eye, all the way around his face over here behind this eye. If your mouth was as big as his, it would stretch from one ear all the way around your face to the other ear, and when you opened your mouth,